Hey everyone, I'm just trying to work out if this is working. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. Okay, here. It says we're live now. Is it live on the channel though? If you're watching, can you let me know if you got a notification? I don't know what the heck's going on. Okay, so we are live. Oh, and I'm listening to myself. I don't like that at all. Okay, so we're live on the channel. Okay. Weird. I think coronavirus is just, I think the internet might have the coronavirus. That's so weird. I don't know what's going on. How is everyone? Oh, Jane Doe's here. Hey, Jane Doe. Really weird. I don't know what's going on. As I said in the last live, and my stream health is really weird as well. Unfortunately, YouTube, if you're not interacting with channels, and because I haven't been going live as often, the algorithm means that it doesn't push out notifications. So that's really frustrating. But we are live. We're live on YouTube, DLive, and Periscope. And I wanted to bring you a live today about Friday the 13th. Here in Australia, it's already Saturday the 14th, so it's not really a big deal. But I figured I would bring you some interesting crimes and events that happened on that date. Well, it's not really a date as such, because obviously the date changes, but some really crazy things have happened. So what I might do is I might go over a couple of things, and if people come in, they come in. If they don't, that's fine. Maybe my channel's dead. Maybe I'm done. I don't know. We'll see. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is something that happened with a cruise ship. It's the Costa Concordia disaster. This happened on the 13th of January 2012. It's one of the most recent events that happened on a Friday the 13th. It's an Italian cruise ship that ran aground and overturned in Tuscany, and 32 people died. According to Wikipedia, the 8-year-old Costa Cruises vessel was on the first leg of the cruise around the Mediterranean Sea, and seemed to deviate from her route and sailed closer to an island and struck a rock formation on the seafloor. I can't imagine being on a cruise ship that overturned. Honestly, that's terrifying to me. I don't know about cruise ships. There's so many people that seem to disappear or go overboard on cruise ships, and now you have the threat of this. So yeah, I don't know, crazy. 32 people died. They salvaged the ship, and it was one of the biggest maritime salvage operations ever. I don't know where the ship is now, but apparently in the aftermath of the disaster, they spent $2 billion on victims' compensation, refloating, towing, and scrapping costs. That's pretty insane. So that's one of the crazy things that happened on Friday the 13th. So that was January 13th, 2012. There was another thing that happened in 2012, and it's the death of Brittany Kilgore, which I thought her last name was very, very interesting. Let me grab a picture of her and put it up on the screen for you. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go on a cruise ship anymore. I thought it'd be a great thing for someone with the chronic illness to do, but it's a hard pass for me now. That's the same article. There's my photo. Here we go. Nope. Okay, so this is Brittany Kilgore. Let me make the image bigger. She was last seen on April 13th, 2012. But she was reported as dead on April 15th. No, she was reported missing on April 15th. So she was last seen April 13th, and then 2 days later she's reported missing, and then 2 days later after that her body was found nude and mutilated near Winchester, California. It actually turned out to be some sort of weird sex situation gone wrong, from what I've read about it. There's a statement that's made by her husband. He was a US Marine based out of Camp Pendleton, and he says, "My wife Brittany was beautiful beyond words, and her murder has left me devastated. My duty to her memory is now to ensure her good reputation remains intact, and help law enforcement and prosecutors secure justice for the person or persons who took her away from me." Are we buffering? Hey Edna, how are you? Hey Making Racket, you were born on Friday the 13th. For me personally, I think that Friday the 13th is a positive day, a good day, just like I think black cats are good things. But I know that some people are terrified of Friday the 13th. Anyway, so her husband talks about how he, what a great person she was, and to not listen to the things going on with the rumors of her case. Murder charges were filed against Jessica Lynn Lopez and Marine Sergeant Louis Ray Perez with this case. So yeah, she was, I'm trying to still work out what exactly happened. It was some sort of the two suspects were involved in some sort of sex cult, it seems, and were very into BDSM and bondage sort of things. There's talk about there being a sex dungeon in it as well. It's a really crazy case. Hey Harvest Moon. Yeah, I think that the whole thing is superstition around Friday the 13th. Although I've never opened an umbrella inside, because that was one that sort of, for some reason, you just don't open umbrellas inside. For some reason, I always sort of thought that that was really weird. So yeah, so Brittany was last seen on the Friday the 13th, but we don't know when exactly she was killed. She's reported missing 2 days later. So that was another little case that I saw that happened in 2012. Now, a part of history that I found out about was that Buckingham Palace was bombed on a Friday the 13th. So Buckingham Palace is obviously the palace in England where the Queen often resides. Let me find at the photo that I have up of this. But yeah, I can't believe it. I didn't realize it was bombed on a Friday the 13th. That's really weird. Add that to the screen. Oh, huge. Image is huge. So this happened in 1940, and it happened on Friday, September 13th. Apparently the palace's forecourt, inner quadrangle, and south and north wings were bombed with high explosives. Apparently, I think they obviously wanted to wipe the whole place out, but it only resulted in a partial success because there were no mass casualties and the physical damage was actually quite limited. Thank goodness, because that's awful, absolutely awful. It's actually hit a couple of times that day. It was also hit. Well, it was hit on the 8th of September and then the 13th again. I can't imagine. I just think about that and the whole being in an area that's just being bombed all the time. It's just absolutely awful. And apparently that bombing that occurred was a 24-hour situation where they didn't stop attacking the palace for 24 hours either. Oh, thank you, Harvest Moon. Thank you. My voice is a little bit gross at the moment because I have a sore throat. No, I don't have coronavirus. I haven't been feeling very well, and so my voice is a little like blur today. But yeah, another thing that happened on a Friday the 13th, and I don't even remember learning about that at school. At all. Another thing that happened on Friday the 13th, so Tupac was actually shot. He was shot on September the 7th, 1996, but he actually died on Friday the 13th, 6 days later. I thought that was a really interesting thing that I didn't actually know about. Let me just check comments. I'm going to pull up my phone so I can see. Oh, here we go. That's better. Okay. So this is a case. The next one is a case that I actually have. I do believe I've heard about because of the fact that no one intervened. So let me pull up a photo of the woman who was murdered. This is a case you guys might know about as well. This is Kitty Genovese, I think is how you say her last name. And she was murdered on Friday the 13th. This case is actually really horrible. Let me grab my article on it. So March 13th, Friday, March 13th, 1964. So we're going back a little while. This happened in Queens, New York. I do remember hearing about this. I think I've listened to a podcast where they discussed this. Hey, Lady Pegasus. Where they discussed this incident. Apparently between 30 and 40 people witnessed her being attacked or heard her being attacked, and no one called the police. No one came to her aid at all. And so this is actually talked about a lot, especially even to this day, and they call it either the bystander effect or the Genovese syndrome. Hey, Alan Stamp, how are you? So have you guys heard of this? I do remember hearing about this. So she was at the time, how old was she at the time? She was 28 at the time and she was living in Queens, New York. Apparently she was leaving the bar where she worked and she... so I'll read exactly what Wikipedia says. Makes it easier if I do that. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on March 13th, 1964, Kitty left the bar where she worked and began driving home in her red Fiat. While waiting for a traffic light to change on Hoover Avenue, she was spotted by Winston Mosley, who was sitting in his parked car. Genevieve arrived home at 3:15 a.m. and parked her car in the Kew Gardens Long Island Railroad Station parking lot, about 100 feet, 30 meters from her apartment's door in an alleyway at the rear of the building. As she walked toward the apartment complex, Mosley, who had followed her home, exited his vehicle, which he had parked at a corner bus stop on Austin Street, armed with a hunting knife, and approached her. Kitty ran toward the front of the building and Mosley ran after her, overtook her, and stabbed her twice in the back. Kitty screamed, "Oh my God, he stabbed me, helped me." Several neighbours heard her cry, but only a few of them recognised the sound as a cry for help. When Robert Moser, one of the neighbours, shouted at the attacker, leave that girl alone, Mosley ran away and Kitty slowly made her way toward the rear entrance of the building, seriously injured and out of view of any witnesses. This is horrible that no one helped her. Witnesses saw Mosley enter his car, drive away, and return 10 minutes later. Shadowing his face with a wide-brimmed hat, he systematically searched the parking lot, the train station, and an apartment complex, eventually finding Kitty, who was barely conscious and lying in a hallway at the back of the building. So he came back for her, where a locked door had prevented her from going inside. Out of view of the street and of those who may have heard or seen any side of the initial attack, he stabbed her several more times before raping her, stealing $49 from her and running away again. The attack spanned approximately half an hour and knife wounds in Kitty's hand suggested that she attempted to defend herself from him. A neighbour, Sophia Farrar, found her shortly after and held her in her arms. Records of the earliest calls to police are unclear and were not given a high priority. The incident occurred 4 years before New York City implemented the 911 emergency call system. One witness said his father called the police after the initial attack and reported that a woman was beat up but got up and was staggering around. Hey, Julia. Lost my spot. A few minutes after the final attack, another witness, Carl Ross, called two friends for advice on what to do, the second of whom called a third friend, who then called the police, who arrived at the scene within minutes of this call. Kitty was picked up by an ambulance at 4:15 a.m. and died en route to the hospital. She was buried on March 16, 1964 in Lakeview Cemetery in New Canaan, Connecticut. Oh, we've heard of New Canaan before. That's just awful. I can't imagine what that would feel like to and apparently she died of asphyxiation from stab to lung, which sounds like a horrible way to go. Hey Iceman, how are you? You're in the States? Dateline doesn't come on till 9. Whereabouts are you? You must be on the East Coast then? Is that right? So that was one of the major things that did happen on Friday the 13th was the murder of Kitty Genovese, and it's just awful. That one really upset me when I learned about it. Now, let's go to England. And we're going to talk about a vile human who killed 2 babies and a toddler on Friday the 13th. Lady Pekka says, I don't know what's going on with the I was close. I knew it was going to be a different time zone than East Coast, Mountain Time. Okay. I don't know what's going on with the internet. A couple of people in chat have said that they're having problems. And obviously I don't think my video went out to many people. I don't know what's going on. I think that coronavirus is not just in the real world, it's in the internet land as well. So David McGreevy is who we're going to talk about. He was born in 1951. Hey Shelley, happy Friday the 13th. And he in a drunken rage, he killed a baby and 2 toddlers in 1973. Apparently, back then though, he was not named as the man who did this, but in 2013, the anonymity, I can't say the word right now, order was actually lifted so that everyone found out who he was. He's still alive, and he's in his late 60s. So let's have a little read via Wikipedia about what happened. On Friday the 13th of April 1973, Elsie Ralph was picked up from work by Clive. Who's Clive? Is a friend of McGreevy's, okay. Who had left home late with the children all asleep. Clive would usually pick her up late in order to help her with closing and to have a last pint. So she obviously worked in a bar. When the Ralphs arrived home, the police were already there and escorted them to the police station where they were told of their children's murder. Oh my gosh. McGreevy, who was known to be a habitual drinker with a violent temper when inebriated, had gone to the Bucks Hill pub earlier that evening with a friend where he drank 5 to 7 imperial pints, which is 2.8 to 4 litres of beer. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of beer. The 2 men had played cards and darts, though a small altercation took place prior to leaving the pub, after McGreevy had put out a cigarette in his friend's beer. Clive had picked McGreevy up from the Bucks Hill and brought him home to look after the children while Clive went to get Elsie from work. Oh my god, no. Sometime between 10:15 and 11:15 p.m, a drunk McGreevy became infuriated with the Ralph children, beginning with the baby, Samantha, who had been crying for her bottle. McGreevy violently killed Samantha and then the other 2 children, each in a different manner. 8-month-old Samantha died from a skull fracture. 2-year-old Dawn had her throat slit, and 4-year-old Paul was strangled. After killing the 3 children, McGreevy went down to the basement and retrieved a pickaxe. He further mutilated their bodies with the pickaxe before impaling the 3 bodies on spikes on a wrought iron fence in the neighbour's yard. He then left home. Oh my god. Wow. That's so bad. McGreevy was arrested by police at 3:50 a.m, walking on a street near the Ralphs' home. Upon his arrest, McGreevy reportedly said, "What's this all about?" At first, McGreevy denied any responsibility, but several hours later said, "It was me, but it wasn't me." After which he described in graphic detail what he'd done. He told police, "I put my hand over Samantha's mouth and it went from there. It's all in the house. On Paul, I used a wire. I was going to bury him, but I couldn't. I went outside and put them on the fence. All I could hear is kids, kids, kids." McGreevy's only explanation for the murders was that the baby would not stop crying. On the 28th of June 1973, McGreevy appeared in court and pleaded guilty to the murders of all 3 Ralph children. The hearing only lasted 8 minutes because McGreevy pleaded guilty and there was no defense plea, no motive, and no case of diminished responsibility. He was sentenced to multiple life terms with minimums of 20 years. In prison, he had been subjected to frequent abuse by other prisoners and has spent most of his 40 years behind bars in protective conditions. He is reported to have successfully adjusted, accepted rehabilitation, and engaged in painting. Okay. What's his name? His name is David McGreevy. McGreevy as in McGreavy. And he's also known as the Monster of Worcester. Oh, really, Lady Pegasus? That's awful. But it's good that they gave you some toilet paper. Wow. Oh my gosh, hang on a second. In December 2018, following a parole hearing, the report said he had changed considerably over the last 45 years and legally cleared him for release on parole. Okay, we have to look him up and see if he has actually been released on parole. He has been. He was released in June of last year. Any bright news? Well, I mean, no. I cover true crime, so it's not really bright news. But if there's anything great that's happened on Friday the 13th that you'd want to let me know about, I genuinely would like to know, because it does get exhausting covering sad things. Oh no, and the woman is still alive that her 3 children were murdered. And it says, this article, it says, a woman whose 3 children were murdered by the same man has been informed that their killer has been released from prison. She said, they said he was going in for life and then they changed it for a minimum of 20 years, but he hasn't done 60 years. He took 3 lives, not just 1 or 2, 3. Let me show you a photo of him now. I can't believe he's out. Him now. Wow. Ms. Uri had, so the mother of the 3 children, had been able to have input on the conditions that McGreevy would be subject to upon release, and said the exclusion zones imposed on him had been extended slightly after discussions with her. Speaking to BBC, she said, it gives me a bit of peace of mind, but it's still not fair he's been released after what he's done. There's other prisoners that haven't done half as bad as what he did to my children, and they haven't been put up for parole, so what has made him able to get parole? What do you guys think? I don't know how I feel about that. Look, I know that sometimes we make mistakes, but there's consequences to our actions, and for me, I would think that he should get 3 life sentences. And usually in England, the life sentence is 20 to 25 years, so he should get 60 years minimum. Let's have a little look at that, if there's any Friday the 13th Aussie Australian crime. Well, we didn't have a crime, but we did have the Black Friday bushfires. We can talk about that if you want. That's the only big thing I remember happening. So that happened on Friday the 13th, 1939. And that's even been talked about during the bushfires we've had in the last couple of months. It's just known as Black Friday. It killed 36 people in one day. Hey, Emily, how are you? Harvest Moon, that's exactly right. Slaughtering 3 children is just a mistake. Yeah, he was drunk, but I'm sorry, but actions have consequences. I can't believe that he's out. I genuinely am shocked by that. So apparently, according to Australian Emergency Management, throughout that season in January in 1939, 71 people died and 75% of the state was affected by flames. All told, about 1,300 buildings, including 700 homes, were destroyed in the January blazes. So that's the one thing in Australia that we have on a Friday the 13th. Let me see what else I've got written down. I don't know how I feel about the death penalty. I'm not sure. I guess, yeah, there doesn't appear to be any that we know about that happened on a Friday the 13th, but I'm sure that there has, and it's just not been made public. There's a lot of other things that have happened. There was 2 plane crashes that happened on the same day. One was in Russia and one was in the Andes. That they both happened on Friday, October 13th, 1972. The Andes one actually carried a football team, I think. Oh, and apparently an infamous leader of the Ku Klux Klan was born on Friday the 13th. That's interesting. Hi, Nikki. Oh, hang on. Found another one. I did hear as well, a 13-year-old apparently in 2010 was struck by lightning at 13:13, so 1:13 p.m. was struck by lightning. So a 13-year-old at 13:13 hours on Friday the 13th was struck by lightning. But he made a full recovery. Hey, Audra. In regards to the letters, I have written out, I think, about 5 of the letters. The lovely, incredible Emily has actually helped so much and found a lot of the addresses. So I just have to pop those into my file that I've created. And on Monday, I'm going to send the first lot of letters. I think tomorrow I'm going to come on and we can write our letter to Luca. I think that's one of the letters that everyone's really interested about in writing. So I think we'll do a stream tomorrow or the day after where we work together to create our letter to Luca. But for now, I've just been writing out the template letter that we've been doing. And for anyone who doesn't know what's going on, is we are writing to convicted killers, mainly in Canada, the UK, and of course mostly in America. So our first lot of letters will go out on Monday. How many, I don't know. I will try and get out as many as I can. I just need to write them all out, and after I've written a letter, my hand's sore, so I have to rest it. But yeah, so the first bunch will go out on Monday, which is exciting. The other There's another lot of murders that happened on Friday the 13th. I'm just looking at the article. They're called the Friday the 13th astrology murders. Let's have a little. Yeah, I think, Emily, the hardest addresses to find are the English and Canadian addresses. So, nope, that's not. Hard to find articles on it because it brings up the movie Friday the 13th. I find, go back to this, it says from 1969 to 1973, police found 9 dead bodies that seemed to be connected. Put up a different. The murders were dubbed the California astrological murders because the assailants seemed to kill during the season's solstice or equinox. 2 of the victims were slain on Friday the 13th. Marie Anstey, was kidnapped on March 13th, 1970. Her body was found a week later. Carol Hilburn was found beaten to death on November 13th, 1970. The case has never been solved. Some have since speculated that the 9 victims were murdered by the Zodiac Killer. Also an unsolved case. So let's look up California. Hey, faithful one. Well, do you know what? It brings up stuff about the Zodiac Killer. It doesn't bring up... Hard to find info. Nobody cares about good news because there's none of them. I was saying to someone today, 2020 has been rough. For people like here in Australia, we had the fires, then we had the floods, and then for me, I lost Bella. And then now we have the coronavirus. Like, I'm not a negative person, but man, I've got to say, I'm ready for New Year's Eve already. Wow. Okay, so this is a case that I don't remember knowing about. California Northern Astrological Murders. It's unsolved. And two of the women were taken on a Friday the 13th. Very well thought out. And I know that's a really bad thing to say, but it was because there were specific dates. Didn't know anything about this. See if I can find out more. It's hard because as soon as you write astrological murders, it just comes up with zodiac stuff. And as well about what serial killers' zodiac signs are. Hi Lightfeather, how are you? You're superstitious on this date? I usually spend the day watching scary movies, but I just totally forgot yesterday. I wasn't feeling very well. I'm really struggling to find more information about this case. I've put in a whole bunch of different things, but it just all comes back to the Zodiac Killer. Here we go. I found part of a book. I don't know a lot about this. And it's completely unsolved. That's fascinating. Have you guys ever heard of this? The astrological murders happened in California between 1969 and 1973. Some people think that it was the Zodiac, but others don't. 2 of the victims were killed on Friday the 13th. So let me read you. What book is this? The Encyclopedia of Unsolved Crimes by Michael Newton. Between December 1969 and November 1970, California authorities identified 9 unsolved murders as the work of a single predator. A common bond was seen in the killer's disposal technique, discarding corpses in wooden ravines, and in a hypothetical connection to astrology. 7 of the victims died in fair proximity to a seasonal solstice or equinox, while 2 were killed on Friday the 13th. Unofficial research suggests that the crimes may have claimed 6 more victims, continuing through to December 1973. Hey, allegedly. The official victim list begins with Leona Roberts, found in December 1969, 10 days before the winter solstice. Her case was treated as a homicide, although the medical examiner blamed her death on exposure to the elements. 5 victims were killed in March 1970 over a span of 17 days leading up to the vernal equinox. Paulette Ellison's nude body was found on March 3rd, cause of death undetermined. Patricia King was strangled and discarded in a gully 2 days later. Nurse Judith Hikari disappeared on March 7th, found nude and bludgeoned in an overgrown ravine on April 26th. Mary Anstey why does that name sound familiar? Marie Anstey was kidnapped from Vallejo on Friday the 13th, stunned by a blow to her head, and then drowned. Oh gosh. Her corpse was recovered from rural Lake County 9 days later, an autopsy revealing traces of mescaline in her blood. What's that? Celebrating the equinox itself, on March 20, the killer clubbed Eva Blau to death and left her body on a roadside gully. Once again, the presence of drugs was noted in the coroner's report. I guess mescaline is a type of drug. Nurse Donna Lass, official victim number 7, was abducted from Lake Tahoe following the autumnal equinox, fall for those of you who don't use the word autumn, on September 26, 1970. Her body has not been recovered. Nacy Benelak appeared to break the killer's pattern, dying of a slashed throat in her Sacramento apartment on October 26, but she remains on the official list of victims. Number 9 was a Sacramento X-ray technician, Carol Hilburn, found beaten to death and dumped on a ravine on Friday, November 13th, 1970. She'd been stripped except for one boot and panties, which her killer left around her knees. The tally might end there, but author Robert Graysmith proposed 6 more additions to the list in his book Zodiac in 1986. The supplementary victims include 21-year-old Betty Clower, beaten and shot in June 1971, found 2 days before the summer solstice. 19-year-old Linda Olig, found bludgeoned at Half Moon Bay on March 26, 1972, 6 days after the vernal equinox. Alexandra Cleary, stripped and beaten to death in Oakland, 18 days before the autumnal equinox in September 1972. 19-year-old Susan McLaughlin, stabbed and discarded in March 1973, 18 days before the vernal equinox. And double murder victims Michael Shane and Kathy Fetchel, shot and left beside a road in Livermore in December 1973, 18 days before the winter solstice. Mere coincidence? Graysmith proposes a total victims of 49 for the elusive Zodiac killer, whose official tally nonetheless stands at 7 dead and 1 wounded. Critics respond that Graysmith has been overzealous in blaming Zodiac for various Californian homicides where no scientific links exist. The 17-year argument will doubtless continue. But one fact remains indisputable. All the murders cited above are still unsolved. I don't remember hearing about that ever. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, so the mescaline is a strong psychedelic drug. Yeah, I remember all the Friday the 13th movies. I love scary movies. Yeah, I don't remember ever hearing about astrological murders, ever. It's really hard to find info on it as well. I guess if you look up each individual case, maybe better to do that. So following on, let's look at good things that happened on Friday the 13th. Found a list. So on Friday the 13th of July 1923, while hunting for fossils for the American Museum of Natural History, an expedition team led by Roy Chapman Andrews discovered the first scientifically recognized dinosaur egg fossils. He'd gone there to try and find the missing link between apes and mankind, so this was a doozy of a consolation prize. Hey Ivor. On Friday the 13th of July 1923, whilst Andrews is digging up those dino eggs, a giant group of letters was inaugurated in Griffith Park, Los Angeles, to signify a housing development owned by H.J. Whiteley called Hollywoodland. Today it's one of the most recognizable landmarks, even though it long ago lost its land. So that's the Hollywood sign. What's my favorite movie? Ooh, it depends. It depends on what I'm feeling. Like, favorite scary movie, favorite comedy. I love watching movies. So let's have a look at some other things. Apparently on Friday the 13th in 1935, National Air Hughes H1 racer set the world airspeed record, which was 567 kilometers per hour, which is 352 miles per hour. The first ever heavy metal album debuted on Friday the 13th, February 1970, and that is from Black Sabbath. I don't understand. So we talked a little bit about that Andy's plane crash and the rugby team that was on there. They've actually included this on the list of good things that have happened because they actually... So that happened Friday the 13th of October. And the 23rd of December, they actually found 16 survivors. So they actually included that as a positive, but the last sentence discusses how they were forced to resort to cannibalism. I'm not really sure why they put that on the list. Oh, I didn't know they did A Quiet Place 2. I loved that movie, but I only watched it once because there's a scene in that movie that really triggers me. I don't like saying the word trigger, but I have a thing about people stepping on sharp objects. It just freaks me out like a lot, and that happens in the movie. So but brilliant. Friday the 13th of December 1974, Malta became an independent republic. Friday the 13th of September 1985, Super Mario Brothers was launched. Friday the 13th of November 2009, so we're moving right ahead, they first found evidence of water on the moon. And then some people that were born, celebrities that were born on Friday the 13th include Nate Silver, jazz clarinetist George Lewis, Julia Louise-Dreyfus, Steve Buscemi, Christopher Plummer, novelist Georges Simone, playwright Samuel Beckett, World War II hero turned actor Neville Brand, and poet Wol Soyinka. What's my favorite scary movie? I really love The Strangers. I love it. I love the Scream series. That's probably my go-to. I was 10 when the Scream series began. The first Scream movie came out, and I was at a friend's house. She had 2 older brothers, and because, you know, they're older boys, they watch those sort of things, and so we watched it, and I was terrified. And then later that night, one of the brothers came in with like tomato sauce, ketchup on a knife, and the Scream mask, and I didn't sleep for months. And I'm not joking. I didn't sleep for months. I was terrified. But I love that series. I think it's incredible. Yeah, The Strangers with Liv Tyler. That freaks me out. Because it's just so terrifying to me that could happen. You love a scary movie. Let's look up scary movies. Iconic scary movies. Let's read the list out and see what we... Okay, Psycho. That is a classic movie. You're not the only one in there. I don't know what your name is. It doesn't come up properly because I'm looking on YouTube. So I stream on Periscope, DLive, and YouTube. So everyone on YouTube can actually see your comments, but unfortunately you can't see what they're writing. It's unfortunately a flaw in Periscope. But if you want to pop over to YouTube, you can, and follow me. I'm Bridget Parker, and you can chat in the comments there. Psycho. So Psycho is just like a classic movie. The original, of course, is better than the remake to me. The Exorcist, loved it. Apparently it terrified my mom when it came out. Obviously it would have back then. The Omen, I don't think I've seen The Omen. I think that's one I definitely need to watch. Rosemary's Baby, I only watched that in the last 2 years, I think, and it's really good. I find that with older horror movies, you have to be patient because it takes a while. There's a lot of storytelling in the beginning before anything sort of horror or scary or thriller happens. It's a really good movie. I need to watch Omen. Okay. Alien, I've never seen Alien. Dawn of the Dead. I mean, I've seen Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, no, I haven't seen Dawn of the Dead. I'll have to watch that as well. Halloween, well, that whole series is iconic. It's just so iconic. Frankenstein, 1931. I haven't seen that. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I watched the remake with Jessica Biel because that came out when I was younger. I have seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's brutal. That's crazy. Jaws, I've seen that. The Shining, I've seen that. With The Shining, I don't think I'd ever watch it again. I found out later what happened to Shelley Duvall during the filming of that movie and how it ruined her life, because the director Stanley Kubrick and Jack Nicholson played a lot of tricks on her to get her to be that terrified. She was actually that terrified whilst shooting, apparently. So as much as I loved it when I watched it, as soon as I found that out, I was not comfortable anymore. Poltergeist from 1982. I don't remember that. I have to add that to my list. Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. That's one of Wes Craven's first movies, I think, isn't it? The Thing from 1982. I haven't seen that either. The Fly from 1986. I haven't seen that, and it says it stars Jeff Goldblum, so I have to go and watch that. I'm going to leave this list up. Let me put this list in the description of the YouTube video, and that way you guys can go have a look if you want to look at different scary movies. Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2, of course I've seen those. Hey, Allison Loves Animals. Hellraiser, I haven't seen that. Pet Sematary from 1989. No. I know they've just remade that, but I'd rather watch the original. Child's Play. So when it comes to Child's Play, that is something that terrified me. So it came out in 1988. I was born in 1987. In the early 90s, I remember vividly my sister was in hospital once and Dad was watching it, and I saw a bit of it and it terrified me. I was so scared of dolls for a while after that. It's brilliant. Good old Chucky. The Evil Dead of 1981. I don't think I've seen that. And The Evil Dead 2 I haven't seen. Gremlins. I think I've seen Gremlins when I was younger, but I wouldn't mind rewatching that. The Blair Witch Project of 1999. I of course watched that, and it absolutely terrified me because it came out around the time that I was like just entering my teenage years. Don't watch the newest one. What, of Pet Sematary? The Blair Witch Project actually changed, for me, my perspective is that it changed movie making a lot, because we saw lots of differences with the style of filming, the fake documentaries that happened after. The Ring 1998. Now that's the original, because The Ring is a Japanese based, I don't know what the word is. It's part of the Japanese culture. I haven't seen the original. All I've seen is the one with Naomi Watts. Thesis, I've never heard of that. That was 1996. Scream 1996, absolutely. That terrified me. I love that series. Misery, yes, Misery's great. Bram Stoker's Dracula, never seen it. Probably should, because I'm just looking at who's in it. That's amazing. Silence of the Lambs, that's just iconic and classic and amazing and so good. Seven with Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. I think I've seen that. Yeah, I'm fairly sure I've seen that. Misery, of course I've seen that. I've read the book. From Dusk Till Dawn, I don't think I've seen that. The Sixth Sense, oh my god, iconic, amazing, incredible movie. I love M. Night Shyamalan. Don't see the newest Chucky? Okay. It, yes, so the original It from 1990 was, it says here, it says who it stars, but it doesn't say. Tim Curry was it was like a two-parter. It was brilliant. The Conjuring with Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. Incredible. I love The Conjuring. The Others with Nicole Kidman. Brilliant. Saw. Seen it. Pretty smart movie premise that's continued. 28 Days Later. Yeah, I've seen that. The Orphanage. I don't think I know that, from 2007. I don't think I've heard of that one before. There's a woman brings her family back to her childhood home, which used to be an orphanage for handicapped children. Before long, her son starts to communicate with an invisible new friend. That sounds good. I'll watch that. The Devil's Backbone. Never heard of it. I think that might actually be from another country. The Witch, 2015. I think I saw that. It was a bit meh. Cloverfield, loved it. Love those type of movies. That's pretty much inspired by Blair Witch, I'd say. The Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, that was pretty good. Paranormal Activity. That was obviously inspired by the Blair Witch, and I love those movies. And that's actually it. There's more. There's heaps more on the list that should be on the list. Oh, I thought Jigsaw was about the Saw series. Hey, Lily Belljoy. Yes, Light Feather, that's what Misery is about. It's also originally a book by Stephen King. If there's any other good ones. The Village of the Damned, never seen that. Oh, Rotten Tomatoes has a list of 200 best horror movies of all time. American Psycho, that's another brilliant one. Open Water, not really scary. Actually, that is pretty scary if you like those sort of animal style movies. Obviously, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Candyman, I've seen that. Trick or Treat. Lost Boys. There's lots on this. There's so many that I still haven't seen. A lot of the older ones I haven't seen. I have a feeling I'm going to watch scary movies for the rest of the day. If you had to watch a scary movie right now, what would you watch? I think what I might do is I might go on to Netflix and see what they have. This is included into great scary movies, but it's not. It's actually really funny. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's a horror comedy. It's so funny. You have to watch it. It's Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And they it's just really funny because they don't realize they look like killers. They're accidentally killing people. It's just so funny. What about The Creature from the Black Lagoon? I've never seen that. That's a movie from the 1950s. There's some great ones on here I've never seen. I also love The Conjuring, The Conjuring 2, and Annabelle. Annabelle's probably one of my favorite scary movies, actually. Emily, are you going to watch scary movies? Let me switch screens and go onto Netflix and see what I can watch. Or watch a movie together. Not whilst I'm live, but we should watch a movie and then come back. Movies. Genres. Horror. Oh, A Quiet Place. Maybe I'll rewatch that. You know what I haven't watched? I haven't watched Bird Box on Netflix. Oh, they have Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice. The Purge movies, they're brilliant. If you want an Aussie scary movie, you should watch Rogue, Rogue. It's about a crocodile and it's really scary. I loved it. I love Annabelle Lilybell. I love that movie. That is my top. Another really great movie on Netflix that's like a thriller is Hush. She's deaf and she's being hunted down by a man. It's really good. What else is there? Going through the Netflix list. New releases. The Loved Ones. Anyone seen it? No. Yeah, Hush is really, really, really good. I really enjoyed that. A whole bunch of like iconic scary movies on Netflix for me. Let's see what Stan has. Stan is our Aussie Netflix. I enjoy that as well. If you want to watch another scary Australian movie, I would say Wolf Creek and Wolf Creek 2. They're based on backpacker murderers here in Australia. Final Destination, The Last House on the Left. See, Stan has better movies. It has all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres. It has Jeepers Creepers, Scream movies. The original Carrie, amazing. What an amazing movie. Child's Play, Halloween. It's got a whole series on the creatures. It has the Species movies. Clown, I haven't seen that. I'm not sure I want to. Sleepy Hollow. Mimic. Queen of the Damned. Black Sheep, that's a really funny movie, I think. That's about zombie sheep. Actually, I might watch that. I watched that once when I was younger. I think we should all watch some scary movies. If you can handle them. If you can't, that's totally understandable. Number 23. I haven't watched that in years. Stigmata. Oh, that movie with Ryan Reynolds, Buried. Ugh, no. That's something I can't. I've watched once. I can't do that. No. Sinister, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Very many good movies. And then there's a whole section on hauntings. Stands where it's at. Not a fan of clowns. I watched a YouTube video yesterday where a guy has made himself to look like a clown. Like he's literally tattooed his face blue, red nose. Crazy. Apparently he went past a woman and she had such a bad panic attack that she needed to have an ambulance called. She was so afraid of him. Taking Lives with Angelina Jolie. That's like a thriller. That's really good. I don't know how I'm going to pick. So many to choose from. 30 Days of Night. The Others is on here as well. I think I might start with something funny. Actually, let's check Netflix to see if Dale and Tucker versus the World is on there, because it was before. Dale and versus Evil. No, it's not on there. Oh, that's so annoying. That's annoying. I have to find. All right, well, I'm going to hop off. Thank you for those that came and participated. If I'm feeling up for it tomorrow, I'll come on and we'll start writing our letter to Luca Magnotta. I think that'll be fun. I'm also working on a video, a true crime spotlight video that should come out in the next couple of days, week at the max. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the day or night wherever you are and watch a scary movie. Be fun. So until next time, please take care and bye for now. Bye guys.